When is enough enough? From a franchise spy who's been going strong for more than 60 years, to an android who had to die more than once to finally be killed off for good, these actors couldn't wait to sing their characters' swan songs. Ellen Ripley is, without a doubt, one of the most influential female protagonists in all of cinema. Long before Rey ignited a lightsaber or Katniss Everdeen competed in the Hunger Games, Ripley was using her courage and wit to slay xenomorphs.
Get away from her, you bitch!
All told, Sigourney Weaver starred as Ripley in 4 Alien films. While most fans can agree that the original Alien and the beloved 1986 sequel Aliens are the 2 strongest installments, Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection still have their place on fans' movie shelves. And Weaver's continued presence is the thread that holds them all together. Originally, a 5th film was set to be penned by James Cameron. However, once 2004's Alien vs. Predator was announced by Fox, Cameron bailed on his work in progress, telling Ain't It Cool News in 2006 that he had lost interest because he felt it would kill the validity of the franchise. Speaking to throngs of Xenoheads at the London Film and Comic-Con in 2015, Weaver explained how she was too put off from any further involvement with the franchise when Fox's crossover was announced. She said, "I heard that Fox was going to do Alien vs. Predator, which depressed me because I was very proud of the movies." Though she was initially on board to reprise her role in a proposed 2015 continuation helmed by District 9 director Neil Blomkamp, the film was ultimately canceled, and Weaver is more than fine with it these days. She explained to Total Film, "There are all kinds of younger actors taking this kind of role, and there was an Alien film that I really wanted to do with Neil Blomkamp, and we didn't get to do that. But, you know, that ship has sailed. I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. I put in my time and space." As Z-word films seemed to be nearing their nadir in the late 2000s, along came Zombieland. Starring Woody Harrelson, Emma Stone, and Jesse Eisenberg, the Zomcom managed to put yet another fun spin on the subgenre's severed head. It also became a feather in Harrelson's mid-career resurgence, as well as catapulting Eisenberg and Stone into the spotlight. But the movie's undisputed coup de grace was a last-minute celebrity appearance by classic Ghostbusters star Bill Murray.
God damn it, Bill Murray! I had to get that out. I don't mean to gush.
Now doubly infamous for bringing Deadpool to big screen life, Zombieland co-writers Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese explained to MTV that Patrick Swayze was their first choice on a list of possible cameos that stretched into the double digits. At one point, they'd nearly secured Matthew McConaughey for the spot, but he fell out with only a few days until production. Fortunately, Harrelson contacted his pal Bill Murray at the last minute. Originally cast as a living impaired character, Murray wasn't thrilled with his role and asked if there was more he could do, also suggesting a few tweaks to the part. As a result, the screenwriting duo revamped the script to include both spoken and grown dialogue, and they got to turn Mr. Badger into a zombie. Nina Dobrev starred as Elena Gilbert for the first 6 seasons of The Vampire Diaries. Elena went through a lot on the show, from fighting off supernatural entities, to turning into a vampire, to dying a whopping 4 times total. Dobrev enjoyed being on the show, but by the end of her 6-year contract, she was ready to pursue other opportunities. She told The Hollywood Reporter in 2015, "Anything for the first time. The unknown, the fear, those are all emotions that are so exciting ultimately. I love that feeling, and I really want to feel that again. That's why I'm excited about this next chapter. I have no idea what's going to happen, and that means anything can happen." Elena's final death wasn't very straightforward though. First, the evil Kai placed a spell on her that meant she would stay in a coma for as long as her best friend Bonnie was alive. After Bonnie died, Elena would wake up unchanged from the passage of time. So in the meantime, she was put into a coffin and stored in a mausoleum. Her death wasn't explained until the series finale, when it's revealed that she and Damon spent many years together until dying of old age. Cal Penn may have only portrayed Dr. Lawrence Kutner for a season and a half of House, but he made a big impression on the audience during that time. Kutner was extremely intelligent, but unlike Gregory House, he was also very kind.
I had a rough time in school too. Maybe not like you, but, I don't mean to compare our situations.
It's easy to understand why fans were so shocked and upset when Kutner suddenly died by suicide without any clear explanation. Penn said he enjoyed working on the show, but also wanted to pursue a career in politics. After working on Barack Obama's presidential campaign, Penn was offered a job in the White House and decided to change career paths. He told the Los Angeles Times in 2009, I got to know the president and some of the staff during the campaign and had expressed interest in working there. So I'm going to be the associate director in the White House Office of Public Liaison. They do outreach with the American public and with different organizations. They're basically the front door of the White House. Who could forget Dr. Derek Shepard, the caring and handsome neurosurgeon Patrick Dempsey played on Grey's Anatomy for 11 seasons?
Did you choose me for the surgery because I slept with you?
Yes.
McDreamy was one of the main reasons viewers kept tuning into the show, so they were devastated when he got into a car crash and died in the hospital. Ultimately though, Dempsey's departure from the show was for the best, as there was a lot of tension between him and the other cast members. In Lynette Rice's book, How to Save a Life, the inside story of Grey's Anatomy, executive producer James D. Perriott said, there were HR issues. It wasn't sexual in any way. Dempsey sort of was terrorizing the set. Some cast members had all sorts of PTSD with him. He had this hold on the set where he knew he could stop production and scare people. The book revealed that Dempsey was burnt out from the long hours and unpredictable schedule. Plus, he wasn't seeing eye to eye with creator Shonda Rhimes or co-star Ellen Pompeo. All of that led to him and Rhimes mutually deciding it was time for him to exit the show. When asked why he left Grey's Anatomy, Dempsey told Entertainment Weekly in 2015, "It just sort of evolved. It just kind of happened. It really was something that was kind of surprising that unfolded, and it just naturally came to be, which was pretty good. I like the way it has all played out." In Season 3 of Grey's Anatomy, Chyler Leigh joined the cast as Meredith Grey's half-sister Lexie. The sisters' relationship was rocky at times, but they eventually developed a strong bond as they worked together in the hospital. Then, after 5 years on the show, Leigh decided it was time to move on from the role. Leigh told TV Line in 2012, "Earlier this year, I made the decision that Season 8 would be my last. I met with Shonda, and we worked together to give Lexie's story appropriate closure." Rhimes explained on X, formerly known as Twitter, that killing Lexie off wasn't an easy decision. However, after talking with Leigh, they both knew it was time for the character's journey to come to an end. Leigh mostly wanted to leave the show to spend more time with her family, which had been difficult because she worked long hours and they lived across the country. She also thought that Lexie had reached her full potential as a character, so there was no room for her to grow. As a result, Lexie was killed off in a dramatic plane crash.
Lend to me.
Walkers claimed the lives of many characters in The Walking Dead, but losing Diehl was definitely a tough one. He was brave and reliable, and his Winnebago was a safe haven that got the group through some tough times. Jeffrey DeMunn portrayed Diehl from the pilot episode until Season 2, when a walker ripped open his abdomen and Daryl put him out of his suffering.
Sorry, brother.
DeMunn told Cinema Blend, "Dale's death was my decision. I was furious about how showrunner Frank Darabont was pushed out of the show. I spent a week not being able to take a full breath, and then I realized, oh, I can quit. So I called them and said, it's a zombie show, kill me. I don't want to do this anymore. It was an immense relief to me." Darabont was the original showrunner for The Walking Dead and a massive part of its success. Nonetheless, he was fired by AMC in 2011 due to problems between him and his colleagues. Since he and DeMunn had collaborated on numerous projects over the years, DeMunn was very loyal to him and said he wasn't willing to be part of the show after his departure. Rosita Espinosa went through so much from the time she was introduced to The Walking Dead in Season 4 to her heart-wrenching death in the series finale.
I'm glad it was you in the end.
She watched Negan murder people she cared about deeply, overcame being terribly sick, and of course, escaped from walkers and living enemies more times than we can count. Although Rosita could have survived and gone on to appear in a spin-off show, Christian Serratos wanted her character to be killed off in the finale. Producers obliged and gave Rosita a heroic ending. Fighting off the undead to save her daughter Coco, she suffers a fatal bite wound on her shoulder. During a 2022 interview with Entertainment Weekly, Serratos said that the premise of the show wasn't zombies. It was family and what you'll do for them. It tugging at your heartstrings was something that I really fell in love with about the show, and I just really wanted people to have that emotional experience in our finale. I know it sounds so dark, but I feel like the show, we owed it to the fans to break their hearts one last time. She also explained that the ending made sense for her character, who was fiercely loyal to her loved ones. And on a more personal note, she didn't want to deal with the uncertainty of wondering whether or not Rosita would appear in a spinoff. The character's death gave her a sense of closure. The pilot episode of Fear the Walking Dead introduces us to Nick Clark, a troubled teen who struggles with drug addiction. The character, played by Frank Dillane, was a big part of the show until he was shot and killed by a member of a dangerous group of survivors called the Vultures. Hilariously enough, Dillane had said he wanted his character to die in a ridiculous way, such as slipping on a banana peel and hitting his head. But the writers were having none of it. So why did the actor want to leave the show? Clark told Entertainment Weekly in 2018, "I have been doing it for 3 or 4 years. The show has undergone many changes in terms of different people in charge. All of this stuff. And I just felt like the beginning of season 4 kind of felt like the end of an era with this show. And television is hard work, and you have to shoot a lot." He went on to elaborate, "I also missed Europe very much. I'm not American, so after a while, I get quite homesick and all of those things. I also felt like we had achieved what needed to be achieved in the first few seasons, so I thought it was time to keep moving." Though Dillane was ready to play new characters, he explained that leaving the show was bittersweet since he would miss the crew and the character he had spent so much time portraying. McLean Stevenson played Henry Blake for the first 3 seasons of MASH. The laid-back character was a fan favorite, but that wasn't enough for Stevenson to stay on the show. He had a lot of screen time when the series first started, but as time went on, more scenes were given to other characters. Stevenson wasn't happy about his character's diminishing importance, so despite the risks of leaving such a popular series, he decided to move on and pursue other roles. Producers could have ended Blake's journey on a light note since he was honorably discharged and heading home, but in an unexpected move, his plane is shot down in the episode Abyssinia Henry.
There were no survivors.
His death was so shocking that producers received over 1,000 letters from angry fans. By today's standards, it might seem tame for a character to die in a show that follows hospital staff during the Korean War, but this was 1975. Stevenson went on to appear in shows like Hello Larry and Dirty Dancing, but he remains most well known for his role on MASH.
Bless you, Henry Blake. Your work here will never be forgotten.
During the 6 years that Julian Glover was in Game of Thrones, his character Grand Maester Pycelle served several kings throughout his tenure. Pycelle pretended to be cowardly and feeble, but he was actually wise and manipulative, and used his abilities to help House Lannister regardless of who he was serving under. You'd think that Glover would love to continue being part of such a successful show, but that wasn't the case. He explained to IGN in 2019, "I didn't want to do season 6 because I realized I was being completely dismissed as a character. Cersei ticked me off all the time, and I never had any comeback, so that wasn't any fun to play. So I went to them and said, look, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not interesting to go on doing this and go on doing this. And what's going to happen to him?" Though Glover made it clear that he wanted to leave the show, producers weren't willing to kill Pycelle off right away, so the actor had to wait until the season 6 finale. Pycelle perished when the former Maester arranged an assassination in which the Little Birds, a group of child spies, stabbed him to death. Glover earned triple his usual salary while filming the death scene and said he loved the way it turned out, so at least things ended on a good note. Most of the main cast members on Miami Vice stayed the same throughout the show's run, but John Diehl's character, Detective Larry Zito, was killed off before the series finale. Diehl wanted it that way because he didn't think there were any exciting plans in store for Zito. He said in a 1986 interview with South Florida Sun-Sentinel, "I didn't have much to do, and it was our 3rd season and I didn't see that changing. They did give Michael Talbot and me an episode of our own in the first season, but it was a broad comedy thing. The two of us arguing over a woman. I guess that's the way they saw us." Zito ended up getting killed by Oswaldo Guzman, a drug smuggler and gambler who had his henchmen inject Zito with a lethal dose of drugs. Diehl approved of the character's dramatic death, saying that it was better than simply having him quit the force. He said he was a bit worried that his acting career would suffer from his decision to leave the series, but he went on to appear in many other movies and shows, including Stargate and The Shield. Tasha Yar was the chief security officer aboard the USS Enterprise D, and her bravery and martial arts skills got her out of some dangerous situations. In 2012, Denise Crosby said she was grateful to portray Yar for so many episodes, but didn't want to keep doing the same thing for years on end, according to StarTrek.com. That's why she asked to be written off the show after just 1 season, leading Yar to meet her sudden and unceremonious death during a rescue mission on a desolate planet. Yar and the rest of her team confronted a hostile creature that attacked her and sent her flying to her death before she could land a single blow. Despite her character's underwhelming death, Crosby didn't regret her decision to leave the series. She told TrekMovie.com, "I was miserable. I couldn't wait to get off that show. I was dying. This was not an overnight decision. It just scared the hell out of me that this was what I was going to be doing for the next X amount of years." Crosby said that she was initially drawn to the role because the character had a lot of depth, but that most of that didn't make it to the screen, much to her disappointment. After a while, she wanted the chance to see what other acting opportunities were out there for her, rather than play it safe and then wonder what could have been. Brent Spiner portrayed the sentient android Data in many installments of the Star Trek franchise. While the role boosted his acting career, it was a double-edged sword, since playing the same character for too long can lead to getting typecast. On top of that, Data doesn't age, and Spiner felt it was unrealistic to continue playing the character for so long. He explained to TV Guide in 2020, "There was just a finite amount of time that I can actually play Data, no matter what anyone says." By 1994, Spiner was ready to move on to new characters and didn't want to be in the film Star Trek Generations, but he ended up doing the movie after some negotiating. When he got the offer to be in the 1998 film Star Trek Insurrection, he still wasn't keen on reprising the role of Data, so he called the executive producer to suggest killing him off at the end. That idea was shot down, but Spiner finally got what he wanted in the 2002 film Star Trek Nemesis when Data sacrificed himself to save his friends and blow up the enemy ship. Interestingly enough, Data's consciousness had been backed up beforehand, so he was later brought back in a new body only to die for a second time in the series Star Trek Picard. Data and Picard had a touching conversation in which Data asked to be put down, so Picard fulfilled his and ultimately Spiner's wish.
I will do what you ask. Thank you, sir.
Although Michelle Trachtenberg has been in a lot of lighthearted, fun movies like Eurotrip and 17 Again, she rose to prominence playing Buffy's sister Dawn in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. After several years on the show, she got the chance to portray sorority sister Melissa Kitt in the 2006 remake of Black Christmas. But she wasn't initially excited about doing more work in the horror genre. She only agreed to be in the movie if her character dies. Melissa was originally supposed to survive the massacre, with the murderess Agnes putting a bag over her head and causing her to faint. Agnes would assume she was dead and continue her killing spree. Then Melissa would reappear at the end. Filmmakers were willing to change the script so Trachtenberg would sign on though, so they killed her character off in a uniquely violent way. After Agnes shoved the bag over Melissa's head, she broke free and fought off the killer for a while. Then Agnes threw a pair of ice skates at her, slicing the back of her head open. Before Heisenberg faced off against the even-mannered drug kingpin Gustavo Fring in Breaking Bad, he had to deal with the hot-headed and unpredictable Tuco Salamanca.
Booyah! Wow! this kicks like a mule with his wrapped in duct tape.
Tuco was supposed to play a bigger role in the series, but actor Raymond Cruz didn't want to continue playing the character. He told AMC, "I asked them to kill me. Honestly, I wasn't looking forward to coming back and doing the part. It's really difficult to pull off. They were like, 'We want you to come back and do 8 more episodes.' And I said, 'No, I'll do 1 more and that's it. You guys have to kill me.' They're like, 'We never heard of an actor that wanted to die.' And I'm like, 'You don't understand. This part's really hard.' Ultimately, Tuco met his end during a gunfight against DEA agent Hank Schrader. Cruz said he thought it was fitting that Tuco died in a shootout because he was so hard to kill that it had to be done quickly and violently. Jessalyn Gilsig was one of the original cast members on Vikings, and her character Siggy was killed off in Season 3. Writer and series creator Michael Hurst had plans for the cunning and resourceful character, but those never came to fruition because Gilsig wanted to leave the show. Gilsig told Entertainment Weekly in 2015, "At the end of Season 2, I had some family issues, and living overseas in Ireland just wasn't conducive to me feeling like I could do what I needed to do on behalf of my family. So I approached Michael, who's an incredibly compassionate man, and he was absolutely marvelous and understanding. He was disappointed, which was flattering to me, but he understood." Many characters in Vikings are violently killed during epic battles, but that's not what happened to Siggy, which made her death all the more shocking. She died in a very heroic and tragic way, saving 2 children from drowning after they fell into a frozen lake. Hurst had suggested the storyline to Gilsig, and she said she thought it was a beautiful way for Siggy's journey to end since it revealed her true character. Few franchises have stood the test of time like James Bond. Since Ian Fleming introduced Agent 007 to the world in his 1953 novel, the character has been in 27 movies across the span of 60+ years. It might seem unthinkable to kill off a character that's the cornerstone of such a successful franchise, but Daniel Craig, who started playing Bond in the 2006 film Casino Royale, knew he wanted the character killed off just days after the movie premiered. He thought it could be a fresh start for both himself and the franchise. Craig told the New York Times in 2022, "If we kill Bond, we can begin again." I think producer Barbara Broccoli thought that too. But bless them, the studio MGM were like, "What are you talking about? Are you out of your minds? There was reluctance, so we had to do it in secret, really. The movie's massive success meant that Bond wouldn't be killed off right away, but Craig got his wish in the 2021 film No Time to Die. Bond got infected by nanobots that would kill his partner and daughter if he touched them, so he sacrificed himself to keep them safe. Craig said he was satisfied with the film's ending since Bond had finally found love and had a child, making his death tragic yet meaningful.
She does have your eyes.
I know.
For decades, Jamie Lee Curtis has played Laurie Strode, one of the most well-known final girls in the horror genre. But any horror fan knows that the only thing scarier than the Halloween franchise is its insanely complicated timeline. Does Laurie die in the 2002 film Halloween Resurrection? Yes. Is she still alive by the end of the 2022 film Halloween Ends? Also yes. The simple explanation is that there are multiple timelines in the franchise. Laurie survives in some of them, while she dies in others. Let's explore one timeline in which she dies. At the end of the 1998 movie Halloween H2O, 20 years later, Laurie decapitates someone whom she thought to be Michael, but it turns out Michael did a switcheroo and disguised an unfortunate paramedic as himself. Curtis couldn't accept that Laurie had killed an innocent person, so she insisted that her character be killed off within the first 10 minutes of the next film. Filmmakers obliged, and in Halloween Resurrection, Michael chases Laurie to the roof of a building where he stabs her and throws her off the rooftop.